I'm addressing on
I know, but we have an audience.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We, my question's always been about Macon, that it has this terrible polarization between people, and there's a lot of backtalk and backstabbing and
you mean a racial divide?
And it's not just racial; it's almost like cultural.
It's economic.
It breeds
Is it
across
classes
every
as well?
single almost human being here, and this isn't a big city. Okay, I come from a city with 9.8 million people.
What's your question?
My question to you, sir, is about relationship. And sometimes being abrupt is not always the best way to be.
I'm just saying, I know we're time limited.
Right.
Well, I mean, you've given him much time.
Oh, well,
but I'm asking a question. I'm going right to the question. I'm going right to the question.
Being open and honest about how you feel and all that. Why is that such a problem here, Macon?
Well,
and why
Macon
are there black people who are against other black people in the same community, and white people who seem to get along a little bit better in this community? But what I'm saying is, why is there polarization, racism on both sides of the spectrum in this place, even against the same race in the city? Why do you think that is such a problem?
It's not unique to Macon, Georgia. Remember Brooklyn Heights, I think it was, in Brooklyn.
That's where I grew up.
I mean, remember that incident with the Jewish and black kids?
Yeah,
so there's the Italians and the Puerto Ricans.
Yeah. So we have that universal, unfortunate, especially in our country.
But I'm talking about in our body politics.
Yeah, but body politics is a result of the people you represent, your constituency. I mean, President Obama can't get out and be anti-gay, not when he needs the gay vote in order to get elected. I mean, that's so therefore, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I say is that we all should seek what's right and try to do what's right by our fellow person, be black or white, be he rich or poor, be he old or young. That's what we all should try to do, because after all, we do have a church on every corner in the city. So we should be getting something out of those churches.
And we haven't.
But Dr. King, you know what Dr. King made a statement in 1965 after his letter from the Birmingham jail, maybe it was 63, where he stated that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America. Well, it's still true in Macon, Georgia, on 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Yeah. We worship differently. We worship separately, but we say that we worship the same God. Yeah. So if we worship the same God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if we worship that same God, then we ought to be more unified than we are.
It's taken a long time. It's not even
it's a long history. We have a long history. Some of it is not too good in Macon when you go back and look at the history of the city and the races and so forth and so on. Even intra-races, you know, within the black community, there were some things that certain people were favored over others based on the hue of your skin and your bloodline.
Paper bags, that's right.
Well, the bloodline, because there are a lot of black people in this town that's closely akin with Caucasians. Look at them and see. I mean, it's no secret. So that group was treated differently than the so-called the house Negro, if you will, back in the day. So that was the division there. So then there was division outside of division between the races. So we've come from a long way, and we still got work to do. And I want to help close that divide.
Good.
Because that divide is not good for our city. It's not good for the advancement of our city, be it in our school system. If we have a 52% dropout rate, and the vast majority of those people who are dropping out are African American youth, primarily African American boys, that does not bode well for a prosperous city.
Right.
We're going to continue to have a drag on because of the social and economic decay of certain parts of your neighborhood. You know, you can't, when they say rising tides will lift all boats, yeah, but you got to have a boat. You got to be in the boat when the tides rise. So we have got a lot of work to do in this town, and all of us better come to grips with it if we want to live in a prosperous town. If not, we will continue to live in a town that's decaying and not growing.
Grade the current mayor's job so far.
A C plus.
C plus.
C plus.
And follow up. Why? What has he done wrong?
I think he's been a
wrong?
very ineffective leader. I think his short-sightedness to put $8.5 million of a SPLOST into a beautification project and put $1.1 million into a senior citizen center when our senior citizen group is the fastest growing. The baby boomers just turned 65, 66, I'm the leading edge. So this is a huge population explosion. That money should have been going into senior citizen house, which is a severe shortage in this town, a senior citizen program, and that's just one thing. But the other part of it, if I could put $8.5 million into a Second Street project, I could have found a way to keep the Georgia Music Hall of Fame here. That whole bit, I would have bought it. That whole thing cost $8.5 million when it was built in 1996. That what we could have went back out. Exactly. The economy is improving and got all those artifacts and got them back here. Even if we had to run the Georgia Music Hall of Fame and say to like the Aviation Museum, say, state, we want some of your money, but we are running. We could have done that. It was a lack of leadership on his part and on Sam Hart's part.
I think so.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay, we asked this question of all of our guests. 3 people that are currently in the city government that are a detriment to the city that need to go.
A detriment.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot and say, hey, talk bad about them, but who do you think is just not
in politics?
Community activists, ineffective, that if their time is up, and 3 people. Can you name us 3? We've had most guests name somebody. The only person that didn't name anybody
Howard Sims would be at the top of my list.
Right.
Yeah.
Howard Sims.
There we go.
Okay. That's number 1.
I think Sheriff Modena would have. He's leaving
and he's
anyway
about to go
because
anyway.
what he just did was unconscionable. That he would take justice and roll it in the mud and roll it in the mud and roll it in the mud like that. If that's an indication, that's why I was against consolidation, having all the power going to the sheriff. If that's an indication of what's going to come with the consolidated government, the sheriff has all power, that doesn't answer to anyone. If that's an indication, and that is a very good indication of what can happen when you take and make a mockery out of justice.
There we go.
What about number 3?
That's about 4 or 5 times. So I'm going to
pass on number 3. Keep going. I'm loving it, baby.
I'm going to pass on number 3.
You and I are on the same page. First of all, I'm a big...
Listen, who must go?
Huh?
Who must go?
The third one. We asked for 3. You said
Robert Rickard. I'm running against him.
Fair.
He got to go.
Okay, but now, come on now, Jack. Come on. That's fair. No, that's fair. That's fair. But let me ask this, and I'm not going to go through the whole show. That's far.
I can't think of another one.
That's far. But let me ask you this, and I'm just doing this because of the people, the chatters out there, the people out there, they're going to say, this guy is racist. He's only picking white people.
They don't know me.
No, I'm saying, I'm not calling them that. Well, this is what...
They don't know me.
Urban, this city's been saying this about him somewhat. Believe me, he's heard this before.
Here's the deal.
Do you think there's any black person that should be out of office?
My great-grandfather is a Caucasian.
Right.
I have second cousins.
I don't think you're racist.
Look just like you.
We
have conversations.
But Urban, you didn't live here. There was a lot of... He went through a lot of hell about it.
You've never heard me. I embraced John Rocker. I embraced John Rocker when they wanted to throw him in the doo-doo camp. I went to Atlanta and took him to Hank Aaron and said, this young man made a mistake, accept his apology, because Hank Aaron was determined to throw him out of the league.
I don't think you're racist, Jack. But what I'm saying is, to tell the people that think you are, is there somebody of color in this city that you think is not doing a good job that needs to go?
Well, I'm not...
who can you name somebody?
I can't name anyone. Maybe there are some that if you evaluate them closely, you would come to that conclusion, but I haven't evaluated their
Do you get along with Henry Fickling pretty well?
I get along well with Henry Fickling. I get along. I'm working in David Lucas' campaign, doing everything I can to help get him. Lonzie Edwards is
Sam Hart.
Sam Hart. I question his leadership and his
I love it.
And his will, sometimes political will, but I don't have a problem with him. We share bloodlines. His son is married to my niece, so. But you get what I'm saying. For the viewers questioning this, they want to.
They want to hear. They want to hear if there's somebody
I know
that
the
he
viewers
thinks
want to
is
hear.
not too good. The viewers and the
viewers like.
Okay, and one other thing that Ed wanted to ask you about consolidation. Were you for it or against?
No,
it?
he was
I was,
against it.
but I made it clear why. Now I remember when I was mayor, I put together a consolidation task force led by the late Senator Brown, and then later by current mayor Robert Rickett.
Right.
What I was against in this one was the sheriff being the chief law enforcement official, and it requiring a supermajority on a 9-member board to get anything done, rather than a simple majority of 5, as it normally is. But yet, the same people who said they needed the supermajority come back in this consolidation task force and said 5 people out of 15 can make a decision that's binding. Right. So that's just nonsense. Yeah. You know, what they want to do is continue to give us a 6-4-9, and our eyes are wide open, and we know better, and we're not going to go for it.
Right,
exactly.
Okay, we ask this question to every guest too. One mistake you made that you wish, that you regret, or you wish that you'd done something differently in your term?
Well, I think the mistake I made was, of course, I made more.
You
than
can
one.
give us more than one. I made
more than one mistake. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean, I hired a couple of people that I shouldn't have hired. Hired a couple of CEOs that my heart told me they were good people. One was a former deputy commander out of Robins Air Force Base, a full colonel, but he wasn't a city manager. I hired another very capable man who had worked in the private sector here in Macon. He didn't work out. So those were a couple of mistakes. And I think the mistake of not articulating better to the people, communicating better, more effectively early on about the money in our situation and the situation that we found ourselves in. But there was so much chatter and muddle that people just wanted to believe what they wanted to believe. So you try to get your message out. Say, hey, here's, I could have, if I had to, like the president, get on there and say, hey, okay, media, carry me, and do some unedited, uninterrupted. Hey, here's our situation. We just lost this much money in sales tax negotiation. We now have this much obligation. We have this much money we're going to have in our reserves. Either we got to lay off maybe 10% of our workforce, or we're going to have to raise the garbage fees, or raise taxes, or cut back on services. Yeah. And here's the one I have made. The decision that I made was to do some reserve spending, and hopefully that we will increase economic development and the money will come back at some point. Well, we got up to one time we got down to $1 million in the bank. I never tell people, we got down after payroll 1 month, we had $1 million. I said, oh my God. But we had sales taxes coming in and other things. And one time we did have to get a bridge loan as a school board, and that's what they allowed it for. And in a way, it's not a bad thing. It's a tax anticipation note, a TAN. But what it does, the banks charge you 1% money, so you can borrow money on your sales tax coming I think it's less than 1% that you pay. And if you don't use it, you don't pay any interest on it, but you can gain interest by having it in the bank. So that's a pretty good deal. So I borrowed $5 million a couple of years. Didn't need the $5 million, needed about 2 of it. So the other $3 million accumulated interest when I only paid interest on the amount that I used. So at the end of the day, it was a wash, or we came out ahead.
And you paid the $5 million back?
Oh yeah, we had to pay it back.
Bad Two-Face wants to ask a question. Bad Two-Face, go ahead and ask a question. We'll get to it.
With that said, probably him doing that and trying to figure out how to kind of generate some income and kind of what they call moving the money around. Right away they accuse you of, he's playing with the fuzzy numbers and all of that, when he was thinking something more legitimate and something honest. Basically, he's smart, trying to bring...
that's what Republicans and this right-wing thing do, just like with our president right now. Yeah. They are accusing him of being in bed with Solinda, that he gave them $4 million, whatever it was, and they knew it was going to go bankrupt. He decided who was going to be a winner. Yeah. He invested in something that he thought that he thinks, and I agree, that's a wave of the future, and that is alternative sources of energy, wind, solar, and things of that nature. That's the alternative. Now we can't keep burning oil and gas and gold.
Recently, just before you came in, we were talking about the 5 signs of how racism still rules politics from Mr. Saruta in the Salon.com article, and elaborate on Irving's question. about the divide. Do you think the reasons why, I mean, even during your term or even after your term, the reason why we have very slow progress in the city because of is it due to is it racism or classism
I think it's a combination of both. You know, we can't. You know, a house. I mean, the Bible is very clear. A house divided against itself cannot stand. So we can't concentrate all the poverty in a particular section of town. That's been proven not to work. It didn't work in Harlem over the years. Now you see Harlem is more of a integrated.
But were you thinking you were divided?
Gabrina Green, Housing Project Chicago. Those models don't work anymore. The new urbanism is you disperse poverty. You don't concentrate poverty. Until you can do that, where everyone is saying that they can get a piece of this pie by not taking what other people have, but by expanding the pie. And until banks, grocery stores, and other people who provide services completely must realize that the people in South Macon have income to spend on groceries and medicines just like everyone else, and they need banking services. But yet, all the grocery stores are closed there. All of the banks are closed. There's not a pharmacy. There's not a pharmacy. There are convenience stores that
and they sell junk food to kids.
But let me tell you what happened. When they eat that junk food, what do? They get diabetes. They get overweight. And where do they go? They go to the emergency room, indigent care. They don't have insurance. Who pays for it? We do.
More money. Right.
So we've got to realize that we're all in this thing together, whether we like it or not.
But in no way do you think you were ever responsible in somewhat dividing this city while you were in term?
Of course not. You never said.
Because that was one of your accusations
the only thing that I said had a connotation of race, and I regret it and I apologize. It was to Herbert Denard, who was a black man. I called him a scared Negro once, and that was taken out of context. What I said to him was, and I didn't call him. I said, you have what my good friend, the former mayor, late mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, first African American mayor of Atlanta. What Maynard had a saying was, there is a disease in some of the black community, and there's no cure for it. It's called the scared Negro disease. Right. And I said to him, you don't have that disease that Maynard Jackson talked about, do you? The scared Negro disease. That's what I said to him. And it was reported that I called him the N-word.
Well, I'm all about freedom of speech anyway. I think people just make a big to-do about nothing anyway.
But I think there is a disease called anti-intellectualism where people making stupidity cool.
Right.
I think he also suffered a lot. Of course, he's more eloquent than I am, and obviously more astute at what he does. But I think that's one of the reasons why people can't stand me.
Because the sharp edge? Because
the sharp edge in your face. I really don't know.
No, he was bringing up the Hugo Chavez thing.
Something else. What I'm saying about him personally, why people call him a racist, is because
not everybody.
Well, not everybody.
Just that was part of the accusations that they said he was. They said he was just basically soaking the money out, and that he was.
What I'm saying
he was doing
stealing all the money and taking it to Africa.
Right. He's been more of an honest in your face.
As though we can do that until the government is not a paper trail.
I'm gonna get your on-the-spot reaction and answer to it, because I only heard this in the Telegraph, and I don't care for the Macon Telegraph as a newspaper anyway. I don't think they get things right. But when the whole thing happened, when you had the blue lights put on your car and you pulled over that pedestrian, what was that all about?
Well, it wasn't a pedestrian. Let me tell you what it was all about. Of course, my car was a police car assigned to the police department, and I had a police driver, so therefore I'm authorized to have blue lights and sirens.
So that is written in the rules of the mayor.
That's as long as the car is assigned to the police department.
Right.
My car was assigned to the police department.
Right.
But I was driving the car myself. I encountered a young man driving a Chevrolet pickup truck on Ingleside Village, where we've been trying to calm traffic because we had a lot of accidents in that area.
Right.
And he came through driving like a fool, and I told him to slow down. And I got him driving behind him, going Ingleside Drive, and I did. It was a mistake. But he was really endangering the citizenry of the city. And I turned on the blue light, tried to get him to stop. And just so happened a policeman was meeting me on a motorcycle, and he did stop, and I turned him over to the policeman. But that was a mistake in retrospect. But let me tell you the same thing. I was pursuing someone who were endangering the lives of the citizens of our city. But let me tell you a case in point. Jim Marshall, when he was mayor, down at the health club.
Right.
They said
I remember that.
There was a peeping
Yeah.
Tom. He chased the man
Chased him down the street.
Tell him that he was cited as a hero.
I remember that.
But I was cited as a villain that should go to jail.
I remember that.
Someone who could have done even more harm in the car. But I'm just saying. But I understand the differences. I was born and raised in Macon, Georgia.
I remember that.
I understand the dual.
He's the mayor.
I understand.
No, I prefaced the question. I prefaced the question saying I wasn't taking their side. I only read about it in the Telegraph. I wanted to hear it from him, from his mouth.
But in retrospect, it was a mistake for me because I'm not authorized, but the car itself is authorized to have the blue lights, the siren. But the only person
and every mayor is authorized to have that kind of car. Okay,
as long as it's assigned to the police department.
Right.
As long as your car is assigned, that you get your.
Why wouldn't you be authorized if you're the mayor of the city and you're basically the commander-in-chief of Macon, Georgia?
But you know,
why wouldn't you be authorized to do that?
Well, the only person that could have authorized me to do that would have been the sheriff by giving me, deputizing me, and now that's what you're going to find in politics. I hope David Davis doesn't get into that. I don't want 1 million people running around with a badge.
Deputized.
You know.
Okay. Okay, Jack Ellis. We are really against the Howard Sims thing here on this show. We have badmouthed the way that's been handled left and right. I went yesterday. I got this printed up. This is an actual complaint against a Georgia judge. I'm going to fill this out today and send it in.
I have my copy.
I gave him a copy. He's going to do the same. Before you get out of here, we want you to address the Howard Sims DUI thing. Well, I'm sure we're going to all agree on this. We're very pissed off about how they treated that.
I think, obviously, Howard Sims is to blame because he was endangering people's lives in his own operating a vehicle while he know he was intoxicated on 2 different occasions.
Well, the police are to blame also.
Yeah, the police is to blame because what they did, but he took advantage of his position. Now, had I been arrested for DUI, I can imagine I would have mugshot up and so forth and so on. But he was.
I agree with that.
But he used his position to curry favor. No, and here's a district attorney at one point and the judge and we preach all the time. No one's above the law.
Right.
We are a nation of laws. No one's above the law. The President of the United States, Nixon, got impeached for lying. This guy was doing something even worse. He was endangering the people's lives, drinking, and got away with it, and still the people elected him.
Right.
So I think that he should just resign, do the honorable thing, and say, I cannot, in good faith, in good conscience, sit in judgment of anyone that's had an accident, that's been involved in a DUI, or anything else, because I'm as guilty as they are.
Right.
What do you think about Modina's decision to give him a thump on the
that was just a political decision that was made, and that's what sheriffs are, political people. They are elected. So therefore, that's why I was so against this consolidation, putting all the police powers in the hands of a sheriff. Because had that been the mayor in charge of the police chief now, that police chief, if he would do something like, you can fire that police chief.
Right.
And get you one who's going to be fair and unbiased when it comes to patrolling the city, meting out justice, not one who's going to look at who you are and what your position is to see whether you are
So you have hope that David Davis is going to be different?
I hope he's learned something from this incident.
I'm hoping
I
too.
trust this is a big,
and
he should have to make a statement at some point to say that he disagrees with this, but this will never happen during his administration. He's been very silent on this issue, and I call on him to repudiate what had happened here. And it was bad police policy, it was bad policing, it was bad policy. It was just made a mockery out of the criminal justice system.
Well, you know that we showed up on at the press conference, and I insisted on being let in.
Yes.
And it was Mr. Davis that actually escorted me upstairs and actually sat me down in the middle row of just facing the podium while I sat there shaking my head at Modena, and he literally abruptly left the stage like Groucho Marx, all hunched.
Well, you think he had all powers, and that's what sheriffs do. They have all power. It's always from the one in Arizona. Sheriffs. They are political people. You give them law power. You give them all the guns and all the bullets. They are in charge of all the guns and all the bullets in the city and county, and they think they're above reproach because they're a constitutional officer, and you can't mess with me. The only person who can mess with me is the governor. He doesn't know he's up there, and he doesn't care. So therefore, elected officials abdicate all policing to one person, and that's not a good deal.
Yeah, that
would be tantamount to the FBI chief being elected.
And that was the primary reason why you
compared to an elected, compared to a regular police officer, being a deputy or whatever, it's an elected official, you can't just fire them on the spot. You have to go through procedure like impeachment and all that.
God,
like any other.
I mean, you have to get a sheriff out of office. You almost got to catch him molesting a little boy or something.
Wow.
So look at the camera.
Or a little girl.
Look at the camera for us and tell us all this. Tell everybody, the world out there.
Yeah.
When you were in office, you never used your title, your power, in any sort of way like that, like Judge Sims did.
Never
pulled over. Never said, "Hey, I'm the mayor of Macon."
Never.
Okay. There you go.
Never to break a law.
Okay.
Now there was some favors extended to me, like when I go to Atlanta Airport, I'm given free parking. I was at the time, and I got escorted right to the plane side. The mayor of Atlanta arranged that for me. There were some other.
Well, you're good friends with him anyway, right?
Yeah.
You were good friends with him anyway.
Yeah, and that goes with the
But I never to break a law. Never broke any laws. Somebody even put out a rumor around here that I went to a restaurant and ate lobster and walked out and didn't expect to pay. Nonsense. And Neil Bortz got a hold of that nonsense and said it on the air.
I remember.
Said it on the air, but let me tell you what I did.
Right.
Now, this never made the news. I sued him.
You squashed it.
No, but I sued him and made him, and they said, "How much money you want?" My lawyer, I said, "I don't want any money. I'm not doing it for money. I want him to give a public apology on this show for 3 days in a row," which he did. I had to tape.
I do remember that happening. I do remember that happening.
Because you can't escape behind people's character like that. Give me the restaurant. I want to know the restaurant, when it happened, and who said this.
So,
you can't just
do you think you're still being investigated as of now?
Investigated for what?
Well, because remember how they talked about they were going to investigate you while you were in office.
Well, let me tell you.
And now that you're out of office, do you still think there's an investigation?
Let me tell you. I've been vetted for an appointment in this administration.
Right.
I've been vetted by the FBI and the State Department and the National Security Administration for my appointment as the Consul General for which I still hold for the country of Uganda, Honorary Consul General, representing them in South United States. So there's nothing in my background. Plus, I'm retired from the military. I've been cleared for a top secret clearance, and I don't currently have it because I have no need to know. I'm retired. So, but there's nothing in my background. There's no secrets. My life has been an open book since I joined the paratroopers and the Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol back in 1966.
Which we appreciate your service. We do appreciate your service.
And you've done a lot for this city that has not been brought up.
But so, when does your campaign start for mayor?
Well, my campaign basically,
other than right now.
We're doing work now. We're recruiting volunteers. We're raising money. But of course, my focus right now is getting our president reelected, getting David Lucas elected, getting the other worthy Democrats in the city and county of the city of Macon County be elected. I'll be leaving for Ohio next week, supposing I was going to North Carolina. They said, no, we're going to Ohio instead. We want to get the president elected.
You have to be careful because Hurricane Sandy will be coming around.
That's right.
Yeah,
Big
that's
Frankenstein.
right. I'm not going to Northern Virginia.
You brought up, sorry to interrupt, but you brought up David Lucas, which reminded me. So what are your thoughts of Marion Paris? Would you not have voted for her?
Oh, I couldn't vote for her under the circumstances. How can I support her when she did something that was unconscionable? When she signed the bill, she had veto power over this consolidation bill. She could have negotiated out the sheriff being the chief law enforcement official or that supermajority. She had the vote. She had veto power, too. She had seized the state, and she gave up her vote. I'm never say she sold her vote, as some people say. She gave up her vote for campaign funds and people to support her, and she was defeated because she went against the will of the people.
Right.
The will of the people. Her precincts, her district, voted overwhelmingly against consolidation.
Right.
So it would make sense then. So they showed her we oppose to your vote. So then you can't come back and support someone that you were so opposed to what they had just
right. But many people have reasons. I was on the other side, of course, agreeing with Miriam.
Maybe she's a nice person.
But here's the thing: we all had our different reasons. Like for you, it was, it made sense. You and I, you had.
Yeah, it was two things on it I couldn't deal with.
Sheriff
and that supermajority. I don't like it.
And that supermajority. Yeah. Correct. Actually, Mr. Lucas brought that up when we were on the show. But you have brought up the sheriff, and I kind of like, yeah, you're right on that. But to me, it was more about there's just too many heads and not that many Indians.
That's true. We don't need as many elected officials, but we could have fixed that by going. We could have fixed that. We could have had 7, 9, and still had consolidation, but having the governing authority, mayor and council, having some oversight on law enforcement, and having a simple majority, 5-4 vote, the way it is now in city council, the way it is in every board or authority in this town. This is the only one. So my question is, why?
Yeah.
Why do we need a supermajority in this body, and we never had one in another body? And then the same people who were supportive of that come back at this commission that's putting this thing together, transition team, whatever it is, and say out of 15 people, we only need 5 to make a binding decision. 5 out of 15. But the other one, you need 6 out of 9.
6 out of 9.
That doesn't make sense.
So a lot of our chatters, of course, again, you don't have a lot of supporters on there, which is all right. It's part of it. That is part of the deal.